what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Arwin, Ranty and Sleeping Warrior. How are you all doing?
All doing great. Fine, flat.
Fine and flat. Good.
Major bit of echo there, Ranty. What's going on?
I think it was you.
Yeah.
No, it's echoing through Nathan.
Is it? Right, okay.
It's gone now. It's fixed.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
So, anybody found any curvature?
No? Anyone found any axial rotation?
None.
Gravity?
Gravity? No.
No?
Anyone found Mick West?
No, he's gone back under his rock. Anybody found any evidence of the molten iron core self-perpetuating its own magnetic and electrical charge and providing all the earthly systems that it relies on for it to be? No evidence of that.
Anyone figured out how prismatic fractal looming actually works?
No.
Damn it.
I did have a good discussion and debate last night in Isa's chat. Did anybody hear it?
No, but has anybody got any evidence of a pressurized system next to a vacuum?
Oh yeah. Red's rhetoric claims that. He claims that as you go up in elevation, the pressure reduces. So let's give it a value that's like minimal as you get higher and higher and higher. At some point, what do you think happens? Well, you have to have a pressure, right? You have to have a pressure differential. How does the pressure differential distinguish between the pressure, and why does it not all get sucked off? That is the question. So does there need to be a dome up there? Probably. Is there any evidence of a dome up there? None. Can it exist without a dome? Not really, because pressure is not just the only criteria for the air to get sucked off, is it? You have to have a differential, not just a pressure.
You have to have a container. Gas pressure is the pressure exerted on the container. So to have a pressure to begin with, you must have a container. So that's game over. Hey, Chocolate?
Yeah.
Morning, guys.
To be fair, I butchered Red's explanation there. I didn't really do it justice. I'm sure he could do it better, but Reds has got an answer to it. So if you're out there listening, Reds, at some point, come in and tell us where we've all got it wrong.
Oh, they've all got answers for everything. We just need our eyes and our senses. They have to have the most ridiculous, retarded things to come up with an excuse as to why this works and why that works. Mathematics everywhere, science everywhere, and it's all crap. It goes against your eyes. Basically saying your eyes are wrong, your senses are wrong, we don't feel any spinning, we can see further than the calcs say. So, yeah, we're the lame ones here, because, you know, our senses, something that we've honed for generations, now are supposedly worthless. We're not supposed to believe in them.
So, Isa's chat last night, I had a really good discussion, heated, very volatile, about that sun. So, anybody know how they get the distance to the sun?
They just assume the distance to the sun.
No, it's calculated. Apparently, they've worked it out. It's got it all sussed.
No.
Yeah, come on, you just
assume
use triangulation.
Well, literally, I mean, I'll be honest. I have not had this discussion, this particular discussion, in at least 12 months, probably nearer to 18 months. Probably in Isa's chat, to be honest. That was the last time I can remember it coming up. And in that time, because I've not mentioned it and not had it for a while, I kind of assumed that it would just be pegged out by now by the ballers. But guess what? It turns out that they haven't got a clue. And I'm going to cite the papers that they cited from last night, because Anybody with half an ounce of grammatical comprehension can understand when they say things like it's accepted that doesn't mean that it's proven. Because if somebody just accepts that Man United are the best football team, that doesn't mean that they actually are. It just means that it's accepted that they accept it. So when science, the whole body of science accepts something, that isn't proof that just because they accept it, that doesn't make it true. What all it means is that it's accepted, right? Doesn't mean it's proof. So we were arguing over where does the value of the distance of the sun come from? And basically, they brought up papers, and we went through different parts of the papers and applied different aspects. And basically, Jeremy is intellectually dishonest, aren't you, Jeremy? Because he doesn't accept that keywords that dilutes the strength of sentences exist in the documents that they rely on. But when it suits them, they use them same like wishy-washy words when it suits them against me, but they never accept it in return. Because Jeremy claims that I'm being semantic, and I'm like, no, Jeremy, this is what it says. And that word means it doesn't mean proved. It means they believe or they accept. So if you get the whole body of science accepting a position, does that mean it's proven? Of course not. So what I'll try and do, if somebody can cover the back door, I will show you the citations that I was putting up with yesterday.
Yeah.
And
Give me a second to get it up.
Or just with all putting it out for a minute, Nath. So, Nath, if you wouldn't mind sharing me.
Europe.
Right. So, let's make this a bit bigger. So, basically, Mark Taylor, Jeremy, Lewis, we were all talking about the distance to the sun because I hadn't seen Lewis for ages, and obviously one of the last times I saw Lewis, he was looking blankly at the question that I asked him about how far away is the sun. We got on to talking about it, and because Mark's got a telescope, he claims, Mark said we got it with the transit of Venus, Riley. All right. So how did they get the transit of Venus? Oh, well, Kepler's law tells us that. All right, so we got to this bit, which was showing this page, and I read him out these 3 points here, and you can see I've clicked on this link, and he said, it's that third one, Riley. Click on that third one. So we click on the third one, and it talks about the square of the period of any planet is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of its orbit. Right? I'll be honest, I don't understand what that means. So I'll click into it, and then you can see the law of periods. But the problem is this graph that it shows, what this is doing. Hang on, let me shut this door. What this graph is doing is it's plotting a scale. And we know it's a scale because there are no values in here for the distance. So, for example, you have the cube of the semi-major axis, which is AU to the power 3, right? So that's AU is an astronomical unit. And then you have this square of the orbital period over year squared. Now, but because there's no actual distances in here, this is a relative scale that's relative to each of these celestial bodies. And we know it's a relative scale because there are no actual numbers in it. It's talking about AU. So the astronomical unit of this reference point is the distance of the Earth to the Sun. Now, in this thing here, it talks about quite a lot of stuff. But we ended up on this particular page. And it cites that third law that we were just talking about. And it says Kepler's third law allows one to evaluate the dimensions of the solar system in relative units. Now, Jeremy will not accept that relative units is not a measurement. He literally knows that this is not giving you any distances, but he pushes that it is a measurement of distance. But it's a relative state to itself, right? So that's like saying my house relative to Nathan's house, relative to Ranty's house, gives us the scale. But unless you know the numbers involved between these houses, you've just got the scale. And this is what this is proving. This is literally saying we have a scale. And he knows this. He understands it, but he still refuses to accept it.
Can I just add something? Sorry to interrupt. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, we had a chap on whose name I struggle to pronounce, who I'm sure you'll give me now.
Hillel Finder.
Hillel Finder explained that it's not possible to take an angular size and spit out feet. That would be preposterous, because it's an angular size. It doesn't give it you in feet. Don't be silly. And then lots of people in the comments, because that's exactly what you were asking for, said, Oh, it doesn't really get it. Doesn't give it you in feet, it gives you in angle. Yet when we come to the sun, suddenly we can get it in miles. It's amazing, isn't it?
Well, look at what it actually says here. Because Jeremy said that you're just cherry picking one line. He says, I'll predict what you're going to do. You'll cherry pick the first thing that you don't agree with. Problem is, the first thing I don't agree with happens to be the first paragraph. And in the first paragraph, it clearly states that it's a relative state, right? It's relative to itself. But let me read the rest of it. And you see the problem with this. Where 1 AU is the mean sun to earth distance. However, to express AU in kilometers or in miles seems to require some sort of parallax, some difference in the observed position of some object in the sun's system, where seen from two separated points, usually the opposite side of the, 6 months later. The distance between which in kilometers or miles is known. So the orbit of the Earth around the sun, they claim that that's known. Yeah. Wonder where they got that from. Anyway, the problem is planetary objects are so enormously distant that the shift in their apparent position when viewed from two separated locations on Earth is tiny small.
Wow.
Are you playing truth?
It works, chocolate.
You carry on, Anthony.
So basically, even if, let's just say that this did actually work, the parallax is tiny small. And when they use that phrase, tiny small, how would you measure it? And then the minute you start talking about micro measurements like this, it starts getting a little pseudoscience. But obviously, they've got these expensive like telescopes that can measure this, and we can't measure it, so we have to accept that it's true. But for them lot, they accept it. But we had this other page, and this page here is quite text heavy. There's a lot to it. And Jeremy, like literally, he must have just typed this in Google and come up with this, and basically found that there was a load of maths in here, and probably thought and assumed that I would just like accept that this was in here. Probably wouldn't read it. But again, he predicted that I would cherry pick from this, and you have to cherry pick from it because you have to look for what the context of the document is.
Well, cherry picking, does that mean tiny small? I mean, I've never heard that phrase used ever.
Just picking the cherries off the tree that you like and ignoring the rest of it.
Tiny small? Really?
Well, cherry picking is just picking the arguments that suit your argument and then ignoring the rest. But at the end of the day, when it says certain things, there is a problem with the context when the context is being diluted with key words. And you have to be careful with accepting this nonsense, because if you ignore the key words that dilute the significance or the strength of the evidence, you end up being an auto-believer, which is exactly what Jeremy is, because he believes that we went to the moon. How ridiculous. But anyway, so he says, under the paragraph, the Earth's orbit, let me just remind myself where the key point was. There we go. Right. So it says, but what is the distance to Venus in AU? Well, the reference point there is the distance from Earth to the sun, and the Venus is closer, so it's going to be a value less than 1. But we can use Kepler's third law, by which the square of the orbital period t is proportionate to the cube of the mean distance a. Now, Jeremy was attacking me based on I don't understand any of this argument, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't understand it either. But in any event, this is the saying that Kepler's third law can be used to work it out. But I've just showed you how Kepler's third law basically it uses AU as a scale rather than as a measurement. But on this paragraph here, it says, let's have a look. I'm just trying to remember where the key point was. It's coming up. I think there is somewhere in here somewhere. I can't remember exactly where it was. But right down at the bottom, it says the derivation of PP. Right. So towards the end, it says, come on, where is it? Right. So here we go. So it says the accepted value. They're talking about this distance to the sun. The accepted value is about 150 kilometers, often rounded up. So the above value is about 5% off. But the key point is it uses the phrase the accepted value. Now, again, Jeremy will not accept that is not a strong statement when you are trying to assert something as true, because it's accepted, not proven, not measured, not true. It's just accepted. So if everyone in this hangout accepts that, for example, Liverpool are better than Man United, then that means that we all accept that Liverpool are better than Man United. But does that make it true? And then, I mean, obviously it's a moot point, but the point is that saying that it's accepted does not make it true. And that he will not accept that. He knows I'm right, but he cannot accept it because he doesn't. He will not accept that the distance of the sun is not cast in stone and set and sorted.
Isn't
because
that the speech that Mick West used when he was trying to say about his well, that's the accepted standard.
I've just realized, yeah, basically, yeah. This is the line. This is the bit that shits all over his argument massively, and he refuses to accept that this is a weak statement. It says, we now denote by X the number of kilometers in 1 AU. That is the number that we wish to derive. Well, me and Nathan might wish to derive 20. Ranty might say, I'll have 30. And Arwin, the contrarian, he'll say, I'll have 100. So ultimately, it's like, well, if you wish to derive numbers, how again is that considered to be proof that something is factually true? Where's the measurement that proves that it is actually true? And there is no measurement.
I'm not a contrarian. I'm just a contrarian toward you.
Touche.
Come on. Let's not fall out.
The point is, by using phrases that they wish to derive, the accepted value, and other things that dilute the significance of what they're saying, they cannot prove the distances to any of the celestial bodies, right? So if you're new to flat Earth and you think that these things are just accepted, they're not. They do not know the distances to any of the celestial objects, be it planets, moons, stars. They don't know it. It's all based on a scale, which I accept they've got, but the numbers that go into them scales are accepted or deduced, or what was the word that it used here? They wish to derive, but none of it's proven. But Jeremy will not accept it. He literally argues that I'm being semantic with the meaning of words. Well, no, if it isn't the word proven, measured, that's not strong evidence to support the idea that they know the distance to the sun. And he's not being intellectually honest. He will not accept that this is not a strong statement, yet he cited it to prove the point. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
I'm done.
It's a giant bag of science wording Legos.
Ballers and the beliefs.
It's only when you put all the pieces together that you notice that the design is not actually complete and there's some pieces missing, but oh well, it looks really nice. Looks really sciencey.
Pseudoscience-y. We've got to stop saying science because, this
Sciencey.
Yeah, I wasn't directing it directly at you, Arwen. I'm just saying in general, when we say science, we should mean science, and we often don't. What they call science and scientists isn't science; it's pseudoscience. Astronomy, pseudoscience. What we're talking about now, this is not science; it's pseudoscience.
Science by consensus is not science, which is what that article is basically saying.
Yeah, you can have philosophical discussions, you can make models, you can do all these things, you can build rockets. That's technology and philosophy, not science. They call it science and they call themselves scientists, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just a label. Science is a very particular thing, and astronomy is definitely not science. Pseudoscience.
So Woz says in chat, well, bugger me, Riley's right. Now let's make it work on a flat. Yeah, go and look up the Antikythera. Is it the Antikythera machine? That's the mechanical construct of a flat sky over a flat plane, and it works. It's been precise, it's been reconstructed, and all the celestial bodies, apart from, was it the moon was on it? We're on it. All the planets were on it. So there is a construct for it. It's called the Antikythera machine. It works perfectly on a flat plane, and it's a clock, basically. Now, I'm not saying that we live in a clock.
Of the heavens.
I'm not saying we live in a clock, but it does appear that we can model it based on frequencies, ratios, gearboxes. It has been modeled, and it does work on a flat plane. So the idea that it doesn't work on a flat plane was, look up the Antikythera machine. Then come back to me and tell me it doesn't work.
The sky really does act like a giant clock.
Yeah. Whilst retrograde orbits, absolutely. Look them up.
Because look how everything just resets again after a year, 2 years, whatever. Like all these cycles that we have up there.
Well, it's mostly the sun that really does reset itself, and the moon as well. The rest of the planets and the star globe, they basically seem to just spin around persistently. They don't seem to really reset themselves. But the sun and the moon definitely have like different phases. The different phases of the seasons, where they just suddenly start to act differently, seem differently. And it's pretty sudden when that happens every time.
Was says, and the southern hemisphere was, if you have two observers in the south, one in Australia, one in Africa or America, looking south at the same time, can we see the evidence that they see the same sky, but just rotated slightly? Must be looking south. Unless that evidence exists, you may as well see that you can't see Polaris in Russia.
Right, I've got your
Yeah,
screen.
we're still waiting
presented.
for some Russians, be it Glober or Flat Earther, doesn't really matter, to please show us a lack or non-lack of Polaris on video in Russia. That would be really nice to get some confirmation of that.
Do you remember a few months back, you could when you searched for Flat Earth Live, there was actually a Flat Earth Russian channel, but now that doesn't seem to come up on the search
Yeah, I
window
remember that.
when you look for it.
You're
Francie, you've got something you want to share with us, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, I have, yeah. Let me know when I'm sharing, Nate.
You have been for a while.
Oh right, okay. Well, I uploaded a video earlier today. It was I nicknamed it Barracuda boat because it, in my opinion, it looked like a barracuda, but this is a different boat, and I haven't got a name for it yet. So I'm just wondering if anybody in chat can perhaps give me a heads up as to what they think that I could.
It's a swimming transformer.
Do you think is it more of a duck? Do you think, or would you say it was maybe a crocodile or something like that?
No, it's a transformer. See, the legs are sticking out and his arms are forward. He's swimming on the water.
I think it looks a bit like a swordfish.
Swordfish.
Mm-hmm. It's got like a
Could
pointy
be.
nose going on, and
Yeah, because he's got these like teeth, sharp teeth.
yeah.
So we've got shark boat, we've got barracuda boat. So we needed a name for this. So when we get a name for it, I'll upload this video. It's just essentially showing the refraction.
Oh man! Look, it's rocket powered. Look, see the rocket on the back there.
Rocket powered swordfish. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway, so that was what I was down there today, hoping to get some good visuals of Barrow. But as you can see, when you get down to 4 or 5 feet, this was the kind of conditions that we were trying to see through, and obviously you couldn't see anything through there. It was a bit of a write-off today for that. However, I do have something else that I want to present. Now, I showed you when I went and I saw the lighthouse, Walney Lighthouse, from the beach at night time.
Yeah.
But I also did a panoramic of the wind turbines. And obviously starting from the left. I'm just going to play the video through till we stop seeing any turbines. But essentially, I counted 181 of these turbines in this particular batch. And I'll show you where that takes me on the wind farm database. Just let it play through so that you know that I'm not actually cheating anything here.
You should pop your mouse off screen. Just ruins it a bit. Thanks.
Okay. Oh no. Right, there we go. So there's the last of those turbines there. So now right, no turbines visible at all, which is very consistent with the layout of these turbines from my position. As you can see, these lines are the line of sight. So essentially, I saw 181 turbines here, and what I've done is I've put a line through where they terminate. So essentially, I couldn't see like this turbine here, or this platform, or this platform, or this turbine. That they were too far. But all these other turbines here were visible. All these turbines here were visible. And on the next, as I pan across again, I'm going to be looking through Barrow Wind Farm here, and in behind that is Ormond wind turbines. So as you can see, direct line of sight, you pan through the two of them. So the smaller ones that you'll see are the ones that are the furthest away. Now this is the issue. There's the near ones. So there's Barrow, and the ones behind there, Ormond. Now the problem is that from this distance and the elevation that I was filming them at, the hub, which is the central part here, where the blades turn around, the hubs of these should be gone. You shouldn't see these hubs from Ormond. They shouldn't be visible. In fact, the only thing we should see is just the very tip of the blades. So we have Barrow, there's Ormond. We have Barrow, Ormond behind again. Then we have Ormond and Barrow, and Ormond and Barrow again. So clearly visible. I'm going to show you what I've just done. Where is it? Where did I put them? Oh, I thought I had them in here.
But Ranty, they were behind the curve.
Were they behind the curve? Oh, Barrow left. Here we go. So what I've done is I've put some lines in here that you should be able to get an idea of if there's any kind of curvature going on. So I've put the line through the hubs. I'm going through the hubs. Now, to me, that looks pretty straight. It also looks pretty straight when you look through the ones at Barrow, through the hubs, through the centre. It goes directly through. They're not arcing like you would expect to see if you was looking at something at those distances. Now, I'm just going to show you what I'm saying isn't horse manure. Here we have, this is for Ormond, the Ormond wind farm. And down on the right-hand side here, we have the hub height, which is here, 100 metres or 328 feet. Now, on Metabox curve calc, Nathan's going to go over in a moment for me pointing that out. But the distance is 25.15 to the furthest turbine, and the hidden should be 334 feet. The actual drop is 421 feet. Either of those two values would be higher than those hub that I've just showed you, the hub height, which is at 328 feet down here. So these turbines here, shouldn't see them. I can show you on Google Earth again the distances involved. If I click this line here, for instance, and we do a line measurement on that, properties, the measurement is 25.2 miles to that. Okay, so we're clearly seeing them. We shouldn't be able to see them. And if I show you on the video, I'll just let the video play through, and you'll see where I was in relation to the water on the beach, how close I was. And I was on my tripod at this time. My tripod was set to about 2.5 feet.
Can I ask, do the ballers ever, do they ever answer the question as to why, even like if things further away that are supposed to be disappearing behind their horizon, like why are they not also leaning away? Like why is there not this
they're
angle?
just blind staring at the border of the apparent horizon. Say, oh look, it's a curve, it's a curve, it's a curve.
But it's like common sense. I mean, if it's a ball, nothing is going to be absolutely straight up, right?
Right. That's what I brought up yesterday.
Yeah, the obtuse angle you were talking about, right?
Yep.
Right.
I say that all the time. Like, I don't understand how they don't like.
It's
where
the great,
do they factor in
scale,
the leaning?
The great scale equivocator that they just balance everything out. Say it's just too big.
Sorry to cut you off here, but just if you can just let Ranty get to the end of his presentation, because he's about to put this exact point to bed.
Go for it.
So, so essentially, yeah. So these turbines that we're looking at here, right, and how much of the turbines we can't actually say for sure. You know, it's impossible for us to say for sure exactly how much of this turbine is missing. But what we do know is that through angular size change, when it gets smaller and disappears into the distance, things are going to disappear from the bottom up. So we are going to lose the bottom first. And this is what will happen. Even though it doesn't look like there's any refraction going on here, I assure you there will be at some point some kind of air properties that are blocking us see any further.
No.
Wait, Ranty, but
that's
to be
not
honest,
the conclusion you came to yesterday, Ranty.
The ocean is diffracting upwards in front of it.
What you're describing, Ranty, is the circle of confusion. And in essence, there's a zone, which Arwen's described and Chris Monk has shown graphically, that you can't see behind. And in essence, you've got it 90% pegged. what's happening is all of these items along this line, because you're looking down these, again, it's hard to visualize what you're showing because these wind turbines are behind each other, going further and further into the distance. But as Plain Truth pointed out, we're not seeing them curve, we're seeing them in perfect proportion with perspective. But there is a point where something that is, say, 50 feet high, right, just for the easy numbers, at, say, 20 miles, that 50 feet item, because of its angular size, will disappear from view at 20 miles. So you can no longer see something 50 foot high at 20 miles. You all with me so far?
Yeah.
Right.
Also,
hold on, I haven't got to the end of my point. Just let me get to the end of my point, please. I beg of you.
Diffraction-induced optical slant.
Just, come on, Arwen. Just let me get to the end of my point. So if you've got something that at 20 miles is completely obscured because its angular size is too small and it has gone beyond the point of convergence, that doesn't mean to say that if you have something 60 foot tall, you're going to bring back the same 50 feet that has already gone because of perspective. So it doesn't suddenly mean that you get the 50 foot below back, but the things that are above that height you can see. Now this is the same exact principle when you look at the Isle of Man. So below the lighthouse, where that band, that line that runs the entire image, below that is lost to this exact effect, the circle of confusion. You will never see below that point. And in the same respect, you will never see below the point of these wind turbines. That doesn't stop the section that you can see converging with the horizon. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would also say that I did some maths on this, and it was pretty close to what we'd already figured out in debate 177, which was the hub height there was 75 meters, and at 23 miles or thereabouts, we figured that the angular size change by using this exact method, putting a line through it, would have disappeared. Those turbines would have disappeared at the 23 mile mark. Also, with this, what we're finding is that when it gets over 25 miles, that's when the discrepancy happens between the 8 inch per mile squared and perspective, because this distance here is almost 28 miles away, where the angular size from the first turbine here to this one, and in a straight line, the angular size would have terminated at 28 miles. So the discrepancy over 20, I think it works out about 30% difference. When you start looking at angular size change over 25 and a half miles, the difference between metabunk and real world observations is about 30%, and it gets worse the further you go. So I think at 30 miles, we'd figured it would be about 50%.
I mean, to be fair, this is you now stomping a corpse.
Indeed.
But that's fine.
I mean,
So
well, basically, you shouldn't see this. These hubs here on this, they should be gone.
Yeah, I
They
think
should be gone.
to summarise, what you're saying is, even with the old calculations where they didn't factor for perspective, so everything's in their favour, it still breaks down beyond about 25 miles, because then you have the exponential increase of curvature.
Yep, the 8 inch per mile squared kills them, especially when you go over more than 25 miles, because angular perspective will just change as a set ratio. 8 inch per mile squares, it's going to become more arced, more curved. You expect more curvature. So
yeah, and the best thing about that distance at 25 miles is that the taller the object, like a mountain or something, the greater the effect of the reduction, because it becomes proportionately smaller. And if it starts off massive, like a mountain, and it's proportionately smaller over distance, the further away you go, not only does it drop behind the curve of the Earth on the model, it also shrinks. So that perspective reduction in size, then you apply the hidden value to it, almost everything's going to be behind the curve because of the curve, if we live on a ball.
Yeah, and just to show you again, the relationship. I know these look like the side on these turbines, but that wasn't the case. This is the line of sight to these turbines here. This is the line of sight. So the nearest one, the largest one of the first of the section, would be this turbine, and then the one on the left is the furthest away. But we're looking in this direction. This red line is the line of sight. Show you again on the image itself. So that one there is the one on the right, and that one there is the one on the left, the furthest one away. But we're looking along the line, just so that you know. That's why you would expect to see the difference between that turbine and that turbine be greater than the distance between this turbine and this turbine if we lived on a curve. So I wouldn't be able to put a straight line through the hubs because there would be a change as it goes over the curve.
There'd be a curve. And what we're seeing is completely and perfectly in line with perspective.
Yeah.
Something they ignore in the broken, busted, presuppositional proof of nothing calculator they use.
So, yeah, that was the observation from a couple of nights ago.
I just want to address a comment in chat.
Cool.
Andy Johnson says...
Thank you, Ranty. That was brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem.
Andy Johnson in chat says, Sleeping Warrior, why don't dense objects displace the lesser dense air above them? Why don't dense objects displace the lesser dense air above them? It's because they are denser than the air above them.
They've already displaced it if it's below it, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure why he doesn't get that. I misread it at first. I thought it said, why don't dense objects... I thought it said, why don't dense objects displace the lesser dense object below them? So originally I misread it and said that it does think about what you just said. And I realized I've misread what his question was. But the dense object has already displaced the less dense air above it. That's why it can't go up because of its own density. It's the same, that's why smoke rises, because it's less dense than the air that it's in. And it seeks to find its level, its equilibrium. So that's why smoke goes up. But I don't really see the problem with that. Objects that are dense will displace the density below them if it is denser than the environment it's in. It's a state of relativity.
Okay, do you guys mind if I highlight a few issues in the aftermath of Mick West and his chat with us?
Why might we mind?
Just because you might have other subjects you might be wanting to talk about in the meantime. I don't mind waiting until the next show or whenever to address this. Well, basically, we're left with a situation where I'm going to use Rumpus as an example. Gem Panda, who was the first, has had it in the neck quite a bit, so we'll use Rumpus instead as an example. Rumpus has used the fallacious calculations, a variation of them based on the standard model, basically the same as Mick West, to assert that the Earth is a sphere. And there's an error, a glaring error. It doesn't include perspective and isn't designed to perform comparisons to a camera. So this is a massive problem. Now, Rumpus has accused Ranty of never getting anything right, but I'm going to make a factual statement. None of Rumpus's assessments of photographs to date are correct. Not one. So I'll make a further statement. Every one of Rumpus's assertions based on photographs and comparison to a calculation using the standard model of Earth are incorrect. He's got it wrong. Now,
100% incorrect.
Very much incorrect, glaring errors have not been accounted for. So, these are outstanding errors, glaring errors, by our protagonist buddies on the globe side. Now, I'm not going to say I'm not in the slightest bit humbled by the fact that everybody can make mistakes. We made mistakes, did we not? We all thought we were looking at Ireland, and we had our noses rubbed in it when we were proven wrong. And we had to concede, cap in hand, and say, we made a mistake. We were wrong. Now, in light of that, I would like to know why these people, Gem Panda and Rumpus, Charles, Flat Earth Math, Ruhif, who we'll come to in a moment, why these people haven't retracted their nonsense and cap in hand admitted their failures and errors. These people, I don't care if it's because of Mick West. You guys have used this fallacious shite, and now it's time to pay the piper. You've got to admit your errors. We've had to do it. Now you need to. You need to address the fact that you've got it wrong. I'm not expecting you to come up with a solution, but you need to acknowledge your errors, and errors they are.
Yeah. And can I just say...
Dependent on the body of science. If they take away a part of the body of science, it'll get skinnier, and then... what do they have left?
Can I just say as well that if it was me or Ranty that had got a mistake, right, regardless of whether it was bad, big, little, whatever, that mistake would be expected to be conceded publicly and in front of everybody so that it could be seen and known that it was conceded. Why is it the case that you guys are not correcting the mistakes in the metabunk calculator and admitting that you've been doing it wrong all this time? And we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. We'll say that we accept that you did not know that you were doing it wrong for the most of you.
Oh, right, yeah, that's fine by me too. I will happily say that these people are just idiots and they've just not noticed that they've been duped by Mick West or any other standard globe model mathematical formula. We'll just accept that you are stupid as opposed to deceitful, which is what we would call...
I don't think all of them should be credited with that generous position by us, because I think the Rumpus and people like, maybe not Jeremy, but the Rumpus,
that's deceit. That's flat out
deceit.
They
absolutely realise this.
Yeah, they're deceitful. Rumpus has tried to evade this, and when he failed miserably, suddenly we had Mick West, despite me not giving in to any of his conditions to come on the show. He still came, and that's because he absolutely had to. He wasn't a coward, like Jem and Rumpus and anybody else who I'll be calling out on the rest of this show. But these guys, you got it wrong, and you need to concede this, lest you be called a total coward. We took our licks when he got it wrong. Now you need to start conceding that whenever you've made a comparison to a photograph, Rumpus will be our example for today, you've got it wrong, mate. Every single time. You've never got it right, Rumpus. Not once. So, we need to have some form of retraction from these guys.
Well, I've challenged today both Al K and Rufus to come on the show today and tell me how they have proven that the observation of
Elsa Craig.
No, Barrow. My observation of Barrow from 1 foot was completely and utterly proven in through mathematics and through the Ball Earth model.
Yeah.
So apparently,
but to be honest, in addition, Ranty, I think that Simon Dan should come on and explain why he did. Well, is it dishonest what he did with that overlay, or is it just reckless? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say it was recklessly wrong. Why would Simon Dan claim that it's simply the top third we're looking at when it neither matched in any? No 5-year-old would look at that comparison and say that there was a match there. Why would you do that and ignore the rest of the evidence in the picture, which matched perfectly what Ranty did? And bear in mind, Simon Dan, Nathan and I had said that we weren't even going to mention it. We didn't tell Ranty that we weren't going to mention it. He brought it up anyway, but we weren't even going to mention it because it's dishonest what you've done, in my opinion. Where's the retraction for that, Simon Dan? Why is your overlay naff? Doesn't match, and it's explained perfectly in the alternative, which you won't even address. So how honest are you, Simon Dan?
Now, just to be... am I displaying, Nathan?
You're on.
Okay, yeah. So just to be clear exactly what they have said, Alk and Ruhif have both said that they can explain a series of images that I took from 1 foot in elevation looking over at Barrow, including what we can see here, which is clearly floaty land, or at least land anyway. But all these buildings now, all these buildings should be gone. You shouldn't see any of these. You shouldn't see this sand dune that's part of the sea wall of Barrow. You shouldn't see the sand dune. You shouldn't see this rock that's on the beach. It's a big rock. It's half submerged in water. You shouldn't see this rock. You shouldn't see this building. You shouldn't see this building here, which is Barrow Town Hall. You shouldn't see the steeple. You shouldn't see any of these buildings at all. Nothing at all in this image should be seen. So they are going to come on the show, so they said, and well, at least I challenged them to, and they are going to say how this is completely and utterly possible on a Ball Earth model. Because up till now, and I've had this out for, what is it, a month? Is it a month?
Tell us what we're looking at, Ranty. What is this? What are we looking at?
Barrow in Furnace. 18
From what
miles
distance?
away.
What distance?
18 miles. Elevation,
and it's flat
1 foot.
as shore to shore, flat as a pancake. What we're seeing here is an obvious and observable demonstration of the flat plane we live on.
Yeah. Not only was it done on a video, it was also done on a series of images. I think there was approximately 8 different images, or maybe 10. And we can actually see the refraction happening up in this image here that goes through the band. And we actually crept, well, I actually crept underneath the refraction zone when I'm taking this and series of of images. So they are now going to come on and explain, hopefully, maybe not right now, but maybe in the next show, and explain how this is possible on the Ball Earth model.
Prismatic fractal looming.
Yeah,
Complete flatness. Completely, I mean, shore to shore. And this land here is no more than 24 feet high that we're seeing. And that's at a further distance. So they're welcome and tell us exactly why this is to be seen on a Ball Earth model. Until they do, they can just keep flapping the gums. That's all they're good for.
Pretty much.
Yeah, this is it. I'm going to assert something else now. That in light of this failure of the standard model, which Mick could have just fell on his own sword and said it was his calculator that was at fault, but no. He chose to take down the whole ship and blame it on the standard model, which is where he got the mathematics from, and essentially why all of these calculations are the same. They're all based on the same thing. They're all based on an R value that's fixed. So they're all based on the standard model, and he chose to bring down that ship rather than just falling on his own sword. But that aside, we're still in the same position. There is no model. Now, I wouldn't dream of asserting for 1 second that we need a model for anything, because models are pseudoscience. They don't prove the natural world. They're not testing the cause and effect of anything. They're not science. Let's be honest about this. However, there are many globe heads under the impression that no model, no argument. Right, lads? No model, no argument? Well, I'm going to say right here and now, you have no model. Because if you did, you'd be on here ramming it down our throats, telling you, this isn't a flat plane. Look, our model, when we presuppose that it's a sphere to begin with and use that in our calculations to prove it's a sphere, shows that it's a sphere. That's what you'd be doing. But you don't have a model. So, no model, no argument, right, lads? So, no model, no globe. Right, lads?
If I can just correct you there, Nathan, that's not the reason they're not coming in. According to Jeremy.
Well, let's hear this. According to Jeremy. Okay, cool.
He's feeling a bit bullied. He thinks that you're being a bit harsh on them. And, you know, to some degree, I kind of half agree with him. But there are people on that Ball Earth side that do need to be harsh to. So I don't agree with you on the Hillel Finder bit because he's a newbie. He's not new to the argument, but he's new to this chat. However, people like Jeremy, people like not Ruhif, people like Jeremy, the Rumpus, Paul Voigt, all those protagonists, Paper Explanator. Do you know, I was in with Easter last night and I said to Mark Taylor and Jeremy, I said, listen, I said, the point is Nathan changed his stance because Jeremy was attacking you, Nathan, because at the beginning of the debates, before the debate started, you said to Jeremy that you would try and be impartial, you wouldn't get involved, and you would be the moderator, neutral moderator for the debate. And he said, what's changed? And I said it was Hank Hill. Now he thought Isle of Man was the catalyst that changed it. He thought that your position changed as a result of that. And I said, no, that's not true. I said, where it changed was Hank Hill. Hank Hill came in and he had Paper Explanator over the rocks, challenging him on the distance to the stars. And he didn't realize, but he got obfuscated by Paper. Anyway, 10 minutes later, Paper Explanator came in, and literally, whilst we were in the middle of arguing over 93 million miles to the sun, Paper started trying to talk about the flights in the Southern Hemisphere, Santiago to Chile and all that. And he's like, why don't you want to address this? I said, because we're in the middle of an argument over 93 million miles. I don't care about this flights around the Southern Hemisphere. That's another topic for another day. He's like, yeah, you don't want to talk about it because it shits all over your argument. I was like, Jeremy, do you remember when I said to you about Paper Explanator obfuscating things and deliberately taking you away from points? That's what's exactly happening now. And that's what these people will do. They will literally obfuscate and they'll all go, there'll be no closure to points. So Jeremy was saying that you became a tyrant at that point with Isle of Man. And I said, no, he became a tyrant when I asked him, is it acceptable that the ballers pull the flat earthers away from a point that they're actually winning on, but then they get obfuscated and they don't realize they've been obfuscated? Perhaps we should step in and stop that obfuscation. Nathan thought about it for 24 hours and then applied it because he agrees. Why should the flat earthers be obfuscated with nonsense? Because they get to a point where the ballers realize that they're going to get beat and they have to get the point lost with nonsense. And that's the turning point. That was when Nathan became a tyrant, or a bit harsh, if you could argue. But it's because you guys don't argue properly. You guys will literally move the goalposts and rely on us not noticing that we've been obfuscated, and it stopped at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
lost track of what I was saying now, but that was kind of.
I'm glad you've got that explanation from Jem. I'm pleased that you've had that conversation. However, Jem, buddy, you've got nothing over me. So I see you in the chat saying you can come to my crappy show that nobody watches, but you've got nothing to get me there. Nobody's going to entice me there. I've got nothing to confess. I've not got anything going on with my assertions. Your assertions are error-riddled. You've made big mistakes. That's why I'm holding this over you. Do you think I twisted his arm to come in? I said I don't care if you come in, Mick. I'll just call you a coward. You don't have to come in. It doesn't stop me from highlighting your fraudulent behaviour, your fictitious calculator, your omission of perspective. I can highlight this without you here, mate. Here's your opportunity to come to defend your charlatanism. If you choose to use it, that's up to you, buddy. Don't lay down demands. As for you, Jem, you haven't got any weight in this argument. You're not holding a single card. All you've got is the outstanding errors you've not addressed. So, buddy, you want to tell me I need to come down to your hangout? No. You need to get your ass back in here and address my audience that you have misled with calculations. As for being harsh, Gem Panda, it is my recollection that you asserted on multiple occasions using fictitious, broken, begging the question, perspective-omitting calculations that Anthony was somehow faking flat Earth. Well, it transpires that every single one of those videos in that series was absolutely factually inaccurate because the calculations you based your assertions on were wrong, Jeremy. So if you want to accuse me of being harsh when you literally haven't got a single weapon in your hand, yeah, you can do that, you Weasley little toe rag, just like Charles did. Charles tried the same little Weasley technique, which actually that segue does bring me nicely to Charles. Ruhif hopefully will get to you too. Charles offered a conditional...
What a nice guy.
Lovely guy. Lovely, honest... No, I won't get that in the list. Lovely guy. So Charles asserted with a conditional acceptance that he would prove R if I demonstrated, in a very reasonable fashion that you would be able to do this, that there are guards on the outside edge of Antarctica. Not that I have ever asserted this in my entire life ever, unlike the R value. However, just to reiterate, Charles claimed he would prove R with scientific evidence if I conditionally proved that Antarctica was being guarded. So we have a bit of a situation with Charles. Either Charles is an absolute liar because he has no scientific evidence of R, because it seems to be, well, conflicting with what Mick West has asserted, or he does have it and isn't willing to present it. Now, given that we are literally battering the living daylights out of every single glober who has ever used the standard globe model to assert globe proof, it would seem reasonable that if you are the only man here with actual scientific evidence of this, Charles, as you have asserted, yeah, then you would actually present it. However, your weaselly pathetic conditional acceptance was nothing more than a distraction technique and a lie. Because that's what you are, Charles. A liar. That's what I will assert. I.e. that you won't turn up with scientific evidence of R because there is none. But that you did assert that you have some, and you do not. You lied. Your conditional acceptance was a lie. Charles, Flat Earth Math, is a liar. Just to get that unequivocally pegged down. His conditional acceptance to provide scientific proof of the R value was totally and utterly fallacious, complete fabrication, a lie, because he doesn't have it. So, I will assume I no longer have to provide guards on the Antarctic, something I have never actually asserted, for Charles to provide this scientific proof, and instead I will assert that that conditional acceptance can be ignored on account of the fact that he was merely lying. and it's not reasonable to go out and spend millions of dollars to acquire his unreasonable standard of conditional acceptance to prove something he is lying about having proof of. So, Charles, you've been served as a liar. Anyone object to anything I've just said there?
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. He's a lovely guy.
I will add that he's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
Lovely liar. Lovely guy.
We wouldn't want you being too harsh against Flat Earth Math.
No, I don't want anybody to feel that I'm in any way unkind to these guys. I mean, the link's there. If Charles is watching, come in and I'll put my arm round you and then call you a liar in front of a few hundred people. Okay, Charles? As for
like
Jem, just to reiterate the Jem point, you got nothing on me, Jem. Neither has Ruhif. Yeah? He seems to feel because I've got a gated desk, that means when I talk others don't, that means that it's somehow unreasonable to Mick. Now this is in response to me pointing out he's got no model. And his response to that was to criticise my production values. This is a guy who gets about 4 views a video in his monotone, boring nature. Yeah, don't talk to me about my production. Address the fact you've got no model. Address the fact that every single time you have asserted a globe proof using these begging the question, perspective omitting, proof of nothing calculations, that you've got it wrong, Ruhif. Wrong. Yeah. And you need to come here and accept that. Accept your licks. The beating that we will give you when you come. Now you can claim I'm harsh. You can say that, but I assure you I'm getting patted on the back plenty when I hold you dicks to account for the errors you have made. And it will be highlighted from now until you concede them or piss off back under the little rocks you crawled from.
Do you know, they're like United fans, ballers. They come out when it's like, you know, when they think they're winning, when they think, if it was going bad for the debates now, right, you'd have people like Jeremy, you'd have Curved, you'd have all those nonces that are coming in just to bleat about how bad it is, that it's going not in Nathan's favour, how the show should be dying, and all that stuff to do with rhetoric and dogma and preaching and basically being like a priest, telling everybody how good they are and how good their side is. But because they're absolutely getting destroyed, there's not. I haven't seen a baller for ages. I mean, who was the last baller that came in?
No idea.
It's Flat Earth Math, the guy that said that you was something ridiculous like 16 feet tall on your half-a-foot observation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he proved it by, I don't know how he proved it, but essentially it was wrong. Yeah.
He said I was at 9 foot. And I was clearly at about 2.
It's always about the observation height, and we suddenly find out that everything we're looking at should all be long gone. Long gone because it's reduced in angular size and gone over the curve of the Earth. But you guys have made an error. I'll say it again, just before I round out. Every single baller who has ever used a presuppositional value of R based on the standard model of Earth and compared it to a photograph has got it wrong. They need to concede this. They need to understand how wrong they've got it. They need to do the same cap-in-hand nonsense we had to do when we got it wrong about Ireland. Admit you are wrong, because that's what men do. Men like Mick West, well, man enough to come on the show, man enough to take his beating, man enough to be humiliated in front of all his globe peers for his glaring omission of perspective, something all of you are now guilty of also. So Rumpus is the main example in this show. Rumpus has never got it right. Not once. Never got it right. So, the man who accuses Ranty continually of never getting it right, it transpires that not a single example you have ever done in front of a public audience was correct, Rumpus. You got it wrong. Very wrong, and I expect some retractions. And with that, I'd like to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in. Now, if you felt I was too harsh, that Charles is not a liar, then you feel free to smash that dislike button. But if you like the show, consider sharing it and subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!